might have life, but drink from the well you have supplied. All of my steps are ordered. You said I'd be blessed in leaving and coming. I know the truth. Ooh, yeah.
All the promises of God, yeah, amen, amen. All the promises of God,
All the promises, yeah, yeah.
I know what you promised me. That's what I shall believe.
Oh, 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 yeah. Lion of Judah, gentle Redeemer, you promised abundant life, so I give you my all, make a sacrifice. All my steps, they are ordered, yeah. You said I'd be blessed in leaving and coming. I know the truth, yeah.
All the promises of God,
All of your promises are yea and amen. All of your promises are yea and amen, yea and amen.
you promised me.
I know what you promised me.
That's what I shall believe.
Oh, 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 oh. God, you promised joy for our pain, peace for our shame. Garments of filth you promised to exchange with a robe of righteousness. I want your promises, joy and peace. I want your promises. I need your promises. I want your promises, joy and peace. You said I could have it if I believe, so I believe.
I want your promises.
I want your promises, every single one.
I want your promises.
I agree with you, Jesus. You said I could have it, and I want your promises. I need your promises.
I want your promises.
Everything you said in your word, I believe I can have it, God. Hallelujah, hallelujah. I need your promises. I want your promises, and I need your promises. Every single one of your promises. Everything you said, everything you said, I believe, I believe. Hallelujah, hallelujah. I want your promises.
It's for a shame. I want the filthy things to exchange. With a robe of righteousness, I want your promises. Joy for our pain, it's for our shame. Garments of filthy promise to exchange. I want your promises. You just have to
John chapter 11. The Gospel of John chapter 11. We'll see if we can finish this today, this time. And I promise I won't cut across the field. John chapter 11, verses 25 and 26. Tell you what, back up one verse. Let's do 24, 25, and 26. Starting with the 24th verse and concluding with the 26th of the 11th chapter of the Gospel of John. How does the word of the Lord read? Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believeth thou this? You may be seated in the presence of our God. I want to talk to you this morning from this thought. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? My brothers and sisters, if you were doing a study of the book of John, the Gospel of John, you would discover that it is different than its preceding Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke. And I said that in the order that they were written. However, Matthew is recorded before Mark because of its completeness in writing, but Mark is before Matthew. It is believed that when Matthew sits down to write his gospel, he has a copy of Mark's gospel in front of him. Luke also, when he writes, he has a copy of Mark's gospel in front of him. And now we know that there's also another source that both writers had in front of them that they now call the Q source. And so once they are finished, you get what we would call three books, three gospels that are alike. And so what we call them are the synoptic gospels. These are the gospels that run along the same thought. They run along the same pathway, if you would, and it allows the reader pretty much, if you were reading in Matthew, it allows you to pretty much know where to go in Mark and Luke to find a particular story. However, when you get to the book of John, John's gospel is different. John is doing what we would call an editorial writing because John is writing at a point where Matthew, Mark, and Luke have already been in circulation, and questions are arising from their gospels. And so when John puts the pen in his gospel, his intent is different. Matthew, Mark, and Luke's intent is to introduce you to a man named Jesus. However, when John is writing, John is not really interested in introducing. By this time, you've read the previous Gospels and you know something about Jesus, but his duty is to prove to you that Jesus is the only begotten Son of the Father. And so when John writes, he writes to answer the questions that were left on your mind after reading Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Look how he even starts his gospel off. He starts it off answering the most popular question of the day. And the most popular question of the day centered around Jesus's birth. It's amazing that most folk don't think of a person's birth until after their death. And once Jesus is dead, has died, and been resurrected, folk then start asking, how did he start? And so they went went back to the manger story in Matthew, and they went back and chased what was going on with John the Baptist in Luke, and they were left with some questions. The number one question is, if he is who he say he is, then tell me, how could God come into existence in a manger? And so here is where John wants to answer the first question when he starts his gospel. And he lets us know that Jesus does not come into existence in the manger in Bethlehem, but John starts his gospel off by saying, in the beginning was the Word. I need to take you back. If you really want to know his origination, it doesn't start in Bethlehem, it starts in the beginning. And now the next question is, how is he and God related? John said, well, let me answer that from the onset. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Watch this. And the Word was God. And then he goes down in the 14th verse of the first chapter, and he said, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. John's intent is to answer questions that have been left on the minds of the saints. And so John wants to show you, he wants to prove to you that Jesus is the only begotten Son of the living God. Y'all all right this morning? I feel a little better. I feel a little better. Listen, John's gospel is precise. And what you will discover in John's gospel is that there is what we would call it's 7, but I stretch it to 8 I am statements. And there are 8 miracles, or what John calls signs. And he's using each I am statement and each sign to point to the proof that Jesus is who he says he is. And so John starts with answering questions. And so he moves as he's answering questions chapter by chapter. He's the Word in chapter 1. In chapter 2, he's the one who can speak to water and turn it into wine. In chapter 3, he's the fella that Nick comes to meet at midnight. But more than just Nick's counterpart at midnight, we discover in 3 that, listen here, he is the gift of God. To everyone that believeth, listen, you shall be saved. And then he moves in chapter 4 to show us that, listen, I am that who you said, who you heard of. I am he, the one who can quench, even Athestis' sisters thirsting for water. He moves through chapter 5 to show you that I can walk on the porch full of sick folk and speak a word to one half believing brother and get him up off of his sick cot and move him towards walking and new life. In chapter 6, he shows us that, listen, I can hear cases and defend folk who are in trouble and let them have a second chance where the law will not give them. And so he's proving himself all the way up to chapter 11. He's building a case, and when you get here to chapter 11, he says, now I want to show you something you've never seen before. I want to prove who I am. And here's the kicker that I love about this text, because Jesus here in chapter 11, he shows his hand. I know in Mark he kept it quiet and we call it a Messianic secret, but when he gets to chapter 11 of John, he wants to show his hand. I want to prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt of who I am. And so I want to look at, if you don't mind, if we just take a moment to look at some things. The first thing I see in chapter 11 is that, watch this, he wants to prove his purpose. The text reveals in verse 5 that Jesus is a loving person, but not just loving. He has a particular love for Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. However, watch this, in chapter 11, he receives word that Lazarus was sick. There it is, in a bad way, and in need of Jesus to come and rescue him. In verse 6 of chapter 11, Jesus stays intentionally. He decides that even though his friend whom he loves is sick and in a bad way, he decides to stay where he is 2 more days. Now here's the part that led me a little trouble, but the text shows us, watch this, that literally Jesus loved him enough to be late. Though the Lord can love you, I never thought that the Lord could love me enough that he wouldn't come when I called him. I never thought that he could love me enough that he would intentionally wait for my situation to go from bad to worse, to go from sick to dead, to go from broke to bankrupt, to go from being downsized from a full-time position to a part-time position, and then from a part-time to a no-time. I didn't think he could love me that much that he would wait until the worst would come, but I came to tell you that sometimes his love will hold him up. Sometimes he doesn't answer because he loves you more than just a quick fix. Sometimes he slows his roll so that you can learn more of who he is and learn his purpose. Sometimes he holds up not because he hates me, but sometimes he holds up because he loves me. His love forever wants to prove his purpose. His love forever wants to prove where he is and what he's doing in your life. He's got mad love for Lazarus, but he loves him enough to be late. In verse 4, Jesus says, catch this, that this sickness will not end in death. Note. Jesus says it will not end in death, but it is for the glory of God. Notice carefully Jesus' statement. He didn't say, catch this, that this thing wouldn't, he didn't say that Lazarus wouldn't die. But he simply said it wouldn't end in death. You got to catch that. He didn't say it wouldn't get worse. He just said it wouldn't end at its worst spot. And sometimes that's what he does. He holds up to allow the worst to happen so that he can prove his purpose in our lives. What is his purpose? His purpose is that in the end, God gets the glory. And so sometimes he has to slow his roll so that in the end, you won't praise yourself. You won't give credit to somebody else. But when he holds up and waits for your situation to go from little help to no help, wait for your situation to go beyond your means and mama's means. He holds up to wait for your situation to get to a point where nobody else can get you out. Then he says, now I don't have to share my glory. Now I don't have to share my glory with money. I don't have to share it with mama. I don't have to share it with a friend. And now I'll move, because if I move now, you'll be bold enough to say, if it had not been not for mama, if it had not for my money, if it had not been for the law. So he holds his roll. He can slow his roll. I know at times when you need him the most. He slows his roll, not to make you bitter, but to make you better. I know it doesn't seem right, but in the long run, you might can't see it on the front end, but hang on in there, because when it's done and when it's over, you'll be able to look back, and what you thought you couldn't get through, you'll be able to look back and understand that it was God, and in the end you'll give glory to him. But not only does Jesus want to prove his purpose, but also he wants to prove his person. In verse 20, the text says that when Martha heard that Jesus had finally made it to town, she went out to meet him. But her sister Mary stayed at home. Watch this. They are both hurt that Jesus didn't come when they called him to come for their brother. And today I don't want to rush past their pain, because their pain is a pain that we feel when it seems that Jesus has ignored our prayer. Their hurt is a hurt that comes from feeling like they were cheated from time. For whatever illness Lazarus had, if we look at it long enough, we can discover that whatever it was, it progressed really rapidly. That if Jesus had just left Bethany a few days prior, we could assume that if he was there and Lazarus was sick, that Jesus would have healed him before he hit the road. And so we can assume that before Jesus leaves Bethany, that Lazarus must be all right. But no sooner than the Lord leaves and gets 2 days' journeys down the road, Lazarus gets sick. And in a matter, catch this, of about 5 days, he goes from sick to dead. We can assume that something unseen had happened. If you allow me a moment, I don't think it's cancerous, because cancer usually occupies a little more time. If it was cancerous, Lazarus would have said something to Jesus. I don't feel good. If it was cancerous, they would have seen the weight loss. They would have seen a dramatic change in his appearance and his actions. Now, so it's got to be something more sudden. One scholar surmises that what Lazarus probably had was something along a line of a stroke or a heart attack, something that debilitated him quite quickly, that the family didn't see it coming, and maybe one morning at breakfast it hit and disrupted their whole family structure. It disrupted their whole lives, and rescue has rushed him now to the hospital. Urgent messengers have been dispatched to go and recall Jesus. It's so bad that they understand it is a race against time. The doctors have looked at him and shaken their head, and they've told the family that there's not much we can do now but make his last moments comfortable. The family is standing at the edge of the city looking to see if Jesus and his caravan are coming. Our news comes from the hospital that now he's taken an even worse turn, and it looks like his time is running out. If he was in modern day hospital, they would have had him on life support, and somebody would have said, keep that running until Jesus gets here. However, they're back in Palestine, and so whatever happened so quickly that in one moment he's with them and the next he's gone. Don't nothing hurt like a loved one who you didn't get a chance to say your goodbyes to. Nothing hurts like a loved one who was up in the morning and before the sunset was down and unable to speak or comprehend. Nothing hurts like not having enough time to get used to this vegetated state until we start now not being concerned with self, but we start being concerned with the one who's debilitated. And we wish now that they would go ahead and pass from pain into the afterlife. There's not enough time. We want time to grieve and to get over and get in our minds that this thing here, death, is a better solution to being laid up as a vegetable, to being left on life support. We want time to wrestle with that issue, but the text says that on one day he's alive and sick, and the next day he's in the grave. So I want you to feel what these sisters feel. That when word comes that Jesus is now here, while they're in the house folding up his clothes, while they're in the house packing away his stuff for the last time. Now he's here. He could have came while they were doing CPR on the kitchen floor. He could have met us at the emergency room. He could have shown up in the ICU. Now that we're reading over sympathy cards and looking at flowers, here he comes. So hurt is Mary that when she hears the news, she refuses to go and meet him. You got to understand Mary for a moment. Don't look bad at her, because Mary feels that her service has been slighted. And the Savior did not take into account the great depth of her love and dedication that she had. Mary is the one, you remember, with the alabaster box. And when she broke it open, she poured onto Jesus' feet a year and a half worth of salary on his feet. When she broke it open, she broke open her life savings and poured it on his feet. And with her tears and her hair, she washed his feet. And Mary says, for all that I've done, paid my tithes, I came to church, I worked where you called me to work, and after all the service I've given you, you slighted me on one prayer. I ain't mean him. I don't even want to talk to him. I ain't going. I'm through with Christ. I'm through with the church. You go see him. I'm done. There is some hurt that can knock you out the church. I know we come up in here and we act like we can take it all and we can handle it all, and oh no, I'll never be moved. Baby, there is some hurt. Have you on Sunday morning not wanting to get out the bed. There is some hurt. And so she stays. However, Martha is a little better, and Martha has to go and meet him. Why? Because Martha is driven by the question that we're all driven by. I just want to ask him one question. I've got to go meet him, because after all I've done, after every meal I've cooked, after every bed I've made up, after opening my doors for him time and time again, after being at his beck and call, I just got one question I want to know. And that question is, why? So she gets to Jesus to ask my question. She gets to Jesus to ask your question. Why? Why after all that I've done? Why after all that I've invested? Why after all that I've been with you? Why this? Before I get to her answer, I do want to pause and give her credit. Because her question has brought her one step further than it's brought her sister. Both are hurt, but Mary's hurt has knocked her away from Christ. Both are hurt, but Mary's hurt has kept her in a cocoon back in the closet. Both are hurt, but Mary's hurt won't get her anywhere. Martha is hurt, but yet she still comes. She's got questions that she wants to know, but her question still brings her before the Lord. I just want to pause parenthetically and say it's all right to be hurt, as long as your hurt keeps pushing you in the presence of the Savior. It's all right to have a question. Somebody said you can't question God. That's blasphemous. Well, that's only true if you're not in relationship with him. But if you've been in relationship with him, then you have the right to question him. David, who was in relationship, asked God, how long will you hide your face from me? If you're in relationship, then you can ask God the tough questions. Don't worry, he's God enough to handle your toughest questions. If you're in relationship, it won't allow your heart to knock you away from God, but it brings you into his presence. Yes, you might be questioning, but yet you are where he wants you to be. Hurt, but I'm still here. I didn't get what I thought I should have had, but I'm still here. When I look at it, ain't nobody else. When you look from Martha's perspective, there's nobody else I'd rather see right now than the Lord. I know I'm at my worst time right now. I know I'm heavy-hearted and troubled mind, but when I think about it, there's no other place I'd rather be than in his presence. Sometimes that's all my hurt does, is it drives me closer to God. When I think about where I'm at, I'd rather be nowhere else than in his presence. So she asked our question. Why? Lord, why? If you had been here, he wouldn't have died. Why? And before you answer, do know that I've tracked the message. I sent it UPS. And I see that you signed for it. And I know the time and the date you signed off on it. And I did the math that if you would have gotten it and came then, you could have caught him in ICU. But you didn't come. You delayed 2 more days. And I got some serious questions about why you wouldn't come when I called. I looked at my service and I couldn't pick nothing out from my service. I've been genuine and true when it came to worshiping and serving you. And so I just got to know, why wouldn't you come? If case you don't know it, I ain't doubting who you are. Listen to her argument. If you had been here, listen, I know what you can do. I didn't call you hoping that you could do something. I called you knowing what you can do. If you were here, he would not have died. I ain't wavering in faith like other folk. I ain't wondering if you can do it like that paralytic son. I'm not wondering about that. I know what you can do. If you were here, he would be alive. So I got some questions, Jesus. I thought we were down. I thought you cared for me. You know me better than Jairus. But when you heard from him, you left immediately to go heal his sick daughter. You know me better than everybody else who's back in that centurion soldier whose servant was sick. You know me better than that. You could have spoke. My faith is great as his faith. You could have spoke a word from where you are. You didn't necessarily have to be here. I know you possess power to speak a thing, and he would have got healed. You could have spoke. Why? I thought I was closer than that. Here's where Jesus earns his merit. Because here, Jesus says, I want to show you something you've never seen before. You know me as healer. But I want to take you to the next level. Yeah, I showed up at Lazarus, at Jairus' house because he wasn't on your level. I answered the centurion's prayer because he wasn't on your level. But because you're on another level, I want to show you something that they couldn't handle. And I want to show you something of who I am. For I'm more than just a healer. I came by to tell you that whenever God gets ready to reveal another part of himself, you better get ready, because God never reveals something new without tragedy, without you going through something hard. God has to reveal. You'll never know he was a healer unless you got sick. You'll never know he was a way out of no way unless you got stuck and you couldn't find a way. You never know that he is bread when you're hungry unless you've been hungry. You never know that he was a battle axe in the time of a battle unless you went to fight against bad odds. You never know who he is until you try him. So he says, you know me as healer. He says, but I want to show you something now. He tells Martha rather, he said, listen, your brother will rise again. Martha says, listen, I know if you're speaking eschatologically, that we all gonna get up in the last day. I got good faith. I've been to Bible study. I understand how the end of times will work. And we're going to all get up. Yeah, I'm all right with that, Jesus. But I wasn't talking about the hereafter. I'm talking about the right now. And sometimes I need to focus not on the hereafter, but I need to focus on the right now. And I know what can be on the hereafter, but right now I need something right now. I'm not talking on the other side of the Jordan. I'm on this side still, and this side needs a right now. And Jesus says, okay, let me help you with this. I'm not talking eschatologically either. I'm talking right now. And Jesus says, you know me as healer, but I want to introduce myself again. I am the resurrection and the life. You knew me as healer, but I want to show you what you haven't seen before. I am the resurrection and the life. He that is dead, though he believed in me, yet shall he live again. And whosoever believeth in me shall never die. Do you believe this? I want to prove my person. And I came by to tell you, he can't prove his person until you get in perils. He won't prove his person on the mountaintop when everything is going good. You won't discover who he is until you get in your valley. Oh, let me help you. Let me help you. You've heard that I am statement before. You heard it on the mountain. There it is on Sinai's mountain. Moses asked the question, who shall I say has sent me? I can't go back with the name, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's been done before. That's got a copyright. I need something new. God says, here's something new. You tell him, I am that I am. Now, I know we shout on that, but on the mountain, that doesn't make any sense. I am that I am. That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand that. And God told Moses, you won't understand it up here, but just get to walking. You'll understand it when you get in trouble. Just get to moving. You'll know what it means when you get in trouble. And when they got to the Red Sea, unclimbable mountains on each side, uncrossable river in the front, an inconquerable army behind them. That's when God said it's time for you to see what I am means. I am a way out of no way. When they get to Myrrh and there's no water to be drunk and everybody's getting ready to die of thirst, God said that's when it's time for me to show you again what I am mean. I am water when you're thirsty. I'm whatever you need me to be, however you need me to be, wherever you need me to be. I am. Sit down. I got to finish up in kind. I started late. Listen, not only does he want to prove his purpose, not only does he want to prove his person, but thanks be to God, he wants to prove his passion. Because you need to catch this thing. He says here, the text says that Jesus tells Martha, take me to the spot where you gave up. Take me to the point that you let go. Because that's where I want to pick up from. Take me to the spot where you lost hope. Come on, let's go to the graveyard. Go get Mary. And let's have a processional back to where you lost hope. I see Mary and Martha. I just believe on the way to the grave, Mary is saying, why? Why do we have to go through this again? I don't want to see the casket. I don't want to see the tombstone. But Jesus says, I want to see where you gave up at. And when they get there and they stop and they point to the stone and they say, there is where hope died. There is where we let go. I believe when Jesus saw the name on the stone with the birth date and the death date, that because Lazarus is his friend, he felt what we feel. And the text says in the shortest verse in the Bible that Jesus wept. Oh, I don't want you to miss that. It's the smallest verse, but it could be the heaviest in this pericope. That the creator of the ends of the earth, he who spoke into nothing and called everything into being, he who can speak to the wind and the waves and they obey him, he who has all power wept. He cried. You might miss it, but the Hebrew writer put it this way, seeing that we have a high priest who is able to sympathize with our weaknesses. Seeing we have a high priest who is touched by the same hurts we are touched by. Seeing that we got somebody who sits high but knows how it feels to walk low. Seeing that we got him, we can now go boldly to the throne of grace. You got to understand what he's saying here. One hymn writer put it this way when he said, listen, I looked at Jesus crying and thought, what does that mean to us? And so he wrote, we are our heavenly Father's children. And we all know that he loves us one and all. Yet there are times when we find we answer another's voice and call. If we are willing, he will teach us his voice only to obey no matter where. And for he knows, yes, he knows just how much we can bear. Then he got to verse 2 and he saw you and me and he said, though the load gets heavy, you're never left alone to bear it all. Just ask for strength and keep on toiling. Yeah, though the teardrops will fall, you have the joy of this assurance that our Heavenly Father will always answer prayer. Why? Because he knows. Yes, he knows just how much we can bear. And so I'm comforted today. I can shout because of his passion. I can shout because he knows what I'm going through. Is there anybody in here that's made up in your mind that I serve a Savior that knows what I'm going through? I serve a Savior that cries with me. I serve a Savior. Let me finish. Watch this here. Not only does he prove his purpose, not only does he prove his person, and thanks be to God, not only does he prove his passion, but finally, my brothers and sisters, I'm so glad that he proves his power. Can't you see him standing at the cemetery where they lost hope? Can't you see him standing there? Don't you hear him tell Martha, move the stone away? I can hear Martha saying, listen, Jesus, it's been 4 long days and he's been in the grave, and with the heat of the Palestinian sun, he's ought to be good and stinky by now. But I just believe in my mind's eye that that's when Jesus turned to her and told her that I do my best work in stinky situations. I do my greatest work when it smells like there's no hope, when it looks like there's no answer. That's when I'm best. That's when I'm greatest. But you got to do your part. Jesus said, I don't roll stones. That's what you can do. But when you've done all that you can do, that's when I'll step in and do what you can't do. And once the stone was rolled, I hear Jesus saying 2 commands. First command, he called out Lazarus. Lazarus, just when he called his name, if you want to know what was happening, Lazarus was laying in the grave, and when Jesus called his name, he opened his eyes, he started moving. That's just with his name being called. I can hear death and the grave having a discussion. The grave tells death, I thought you had him. You told me that you had him. Death said, I thought I had him, but I couldn't keep his ears closed. I thought I had him, but I couldn't keep him from hearing the voice of the one who calls everything into being. And so when Jesus said Lazarus, even deaf ears had to hear what he was saying, and Lazarus' eyes open. I believe the grave told old death, he said, you've done this before. You've lost a many. You've lost some folk that were already dead, but the grave said, I'm better than you because my record is impeccable. There has been nobody up until this point that's got in my grave, that's got out. You remember Elijah with that sick boy. He wasn't in the grave. He died and got back up. You remember the widow from Nain. They weren't at the grave. He stopped him and got him back up. But I've got a good record. Everybody that's made it to me, I've been able to hold, because one thing I do when they get to the grave, I snatch out everything they could stand on. But that's when the second command came. Jesus said, after saying Lazarus, he said, get up. And that's when Lazarus stood up. I hear the death ask the grave, I thought you had him. I hear old man death ask the grave, you supposed to keep him. And I hear the grave saying, up until this time, nobody has had anything to stand on. And death asked him, well, what is he standing on? Then grave said, he's standing on the word. The word said, get up. He's standing on the word. And if you stand on the word, you can't help but win. I hear Jesus saying, come forth, loose him, and let him go. Do you believe that he is the only begotten of the Father? Do you believe that in him all things are possible? Do you believe this? I need about 10 crazy saints that don't mind testifying that I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, I know who he is. I know. He's more than a healer. He's resurrection. And he's life. What does that mean? That means whatever dead situation you find yourself in, I know the resurrector who brings life to every dead situation. What is it you're going through? What is it that you gave up hope on? What is it that you just figured couldn't be fixed when it hit that point? Well, I want to show you that he specializes in proving who he is. And the beautiful thing about his I am statements is they're the same as what he told Moses. You'll discover I am whatever you need me to be. What do you need this morning? You need a mother? I got good news for you. He is a mother for the motherless. What do you need this morning? Don't know where your daddy is? That's all right. I got good news for you. He's a father for the fatherless. What do you need this morning? Finances gone crazy. Then I got good news for you. He's whatever you need him to be. He's the meter of ends when you just can't make ends meet. He's the grace that gets you with an empty tank to working home again. He's the forgiveness that gets your credit score overlooked and gives you the house you need. What do you need him to be today? For Jesus says, I want to prove to you that I'm more. Whatever you knew me as, I just want to show you I'm more than that. I'm bigger than that. I'm stronger than that. What do you need today? Doctor gave you something you can't handle. That's all right. He didn't give you anything God can't handle. He wants to show you that, watch this, I can fix what the doctors say can't be fixed. But watch this, I can do something even better than that. I can keep you with the illness. I can show you that I don't have to take it away. Because if I just took it away, you get down the road and you won't think much of it. But if I keep you saying good morning while you got it, and let folk tell you what you can't do, and the very thing they tell you you can't do, I'm going to show you that you can do it. What is it that you got? You got asthma? You ain't the first. Flojo showed us she could break a world record with asthma. Why? Because God says, I'll let you do what others say can't be done. You got diabetes? You ain't the first. God said, I'll keep you with it, the disease, and I'll let you live as though you didn't have it in the first place. I want to show myself. Until you believe. That's it. I just want to show myself until you believe. And then ask the question to you, do you believe this? That's why I shout, because he's proven himself. Now let me help you connect the dots. That if he's proven himself over and over again back then, and he's proven that his word is true, that he can't lie, that just helps me shout about the stuff he said that's ahead of me. And I don't have to worry about what's ahead of me because he's got a track record and I believe what he said. Well, what did he say, Gene? Well, what he said that's ahead of me. He said, when this earthly tabernacle dissolves, I got a better building, not made by hand, eternal in there. I can shout right now because I got a better home. I can shout right now because I know where I'm headed. That one glad morning when this life is over, I will fly away. time the doors of the church are open. Maybe you're here today, and that's the question he's been asking. It's a simple question. Do you believe? That's the question. That's the question he wants to know. Do you believe this? Do you believe? Do you believe? I hear Job's question asked and answered. If a man die, shall he live again? The answer is yes. Job says, I know my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day. Though worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. If a man dies, will he live again? Yes!
Yes. Hallelujah.
I believe it.
Yes.
I believe it. I know it. I believe it. And so the question goes to you. If you're here today and you aren't saved,
Yes.
he's done enough to prove himself.
Yes.
He's done enough
Thank you, God.
to prove himself.
Thank you, Lord.
And the question is, do you believe this?
Yes. Over and over.
If you're here today and you don't know Jesus and the pardon of your sin,
Over and over.
he died just for you. With his blood, he's paid for all of our sins. But he didn't stay dead. Bright early on Sunday morning,
Yes. Yes.
he got up with all power in his hands. Do you believe this? Because if you aren't saved and you believe that, then the Bible says what you believe in your heart, confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you shall be saved. Turn to your neighbor, ask your neighbor, are you saved? Do you have a church home? If they can't answer either one of those, say, come on, I'll walk you down. The other question is, are you growing where you're going? Or are you stagnant? If you aren't growing, then you ought to get to where you're growing at. We want you. We want you. We want to help you as you work out your own salvation.
You have been watching this special presentation from the Abyssinia Missionary Baptist Church. We pray that this message has been a blessing to you. If you're not a member and you want to give your life to Christ, email us at info@abyssinia.org or call us at 904-696-1770 or respond to our Facebook page at Abyssinia Missionary Baptist Church, Jax. If you want to make a contribution to the ministry by way of tithes and offerings, go to our website at abyssinia.org and click Online Giving. Select your type of contribution, and it'll take you to a secure page to make your transaction. If you want to send in or drop off your contribution, you can do so at 10325 Interstate Center Drive, Jacksonville, Florida 32218. You can also cash out your contribution to $the AB 101. Thank you again for watching, and God bless.